My name is Parker.
And my name is Ned.
And this is The Force Unlimited, yet another Star Wars Unlimited podcast. This is episode number 18. We are recording on June 28th. And dear listener, we are so envious of you because we are back here in Spark of Rebellion, but you have already had your pre-release. You have the cards in your hand, and that is pretty awesome. Speaking of awesome, Ned, how have you been since the last episode?
I've been remarkably well. So I played, for those of you who may not know, I played in the Portland 2K at Guardian Games, and I made top 8. I immediately lost in the first round of finals, but I lost to Gandork, so I feel like there's not a lot of shade there. And I think for more personal, credit, I was piloting GI Blue, which I think is not a meta list. So I
think making the finals with Jank is as respectable as like actually maybe not. It's respectable as like getting up to the top 2. Like obviously winning is everything, so taking it is everything. But yeah, no, getting to the finals with Jank is something you very much should feel proud about. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Dear listener, 2 notes. One, I want to apologize for last episode. Our audio was real rough. Ned and I are not content creators. We are 2 dudes with a podcast. We are one step above Zoom, but I know it's going to get better now because I ran our setup past a professional musician with the kind who has like a full recording booth in their house, soundproofed, etc., who records a lot of music professionally, and sent him our setup, and he described the quality of gear as if we invited him to one of our fancy board game parties and he brought Parcheesi. So I think that cut right to the quick with Ned, and I think we're going to be buying some new stuff.
Preamps and this and that.
Yeah, but the good news is I continue to be impressed with how good the game is. I tweeted earlier in the week, Ned and I were at the last draft for Spark of Rebellion at Guardian Games earlier this week. That was how'd you end up doing, Ned? I bounced. You went 3-0?
I went 2 and a tie.
Okay.
So I had like a legit tie second round where both my opponent and I drew on an empty deck with enough health on base that we died simultaneously.
So I went 2-1, 1-2, 1-2, and all of the losses I felt like should have been wins. For probably very obvious reasons, the last 2 weeks have been relatively sleepless. So I'll take it. The wins were by my opponents were earned. I was in rough scene. But the thing that really struck me about the game was there were 3 off-duty Guardian Games employees playing that night, and 2 employees from other local area stores who came also to draft and just play in another store, which I think speaks both to the quality of the game and to the quality of the Portland scene. That was really warming, just really nice to see. Hopefully there's enough product that the drafts can get even bigger. But Ned, as always, we just played our first pre-episode Shadows matchup. Why don't you tell me how it went?
So I was on a list that you will be hearing about later that was Jaa Red, and Parker was on Vader Green. So we had 2 red-green matchups, which I think was fun. There were a lot of similar cards. We weren't quite able to escape from the dark orbit of the Dark Lord of the Sith himself, Darth Vader, on 7 in Villainy Green. But first match was I had a really awful start, and part of that is because I need to do a better job of reading the cards.
That's I was saying in the game, that's my it's simultaneously fun but also mildly frustrating. Is the first part of the set where you're like, oh, this card he'll threaten my base with it. Oh, right, and it also can target units, or where you're just there's that knowing the card well enough to really internalize it in your in those, the lines are so raw, they're so green that It's fun, it's exciting, but it's also like, ugh, like, because you immediately throw away games. Just, I mean, it's there's no discovery going on.
Yeah.
You just,
it's like, whoa, yeah,
nope.
no, reading
the card explains the card, but also just like, yeah, you're just at a point where you're like, I feel like I want to scoop, right? Like, it's that moment where you're just like, that wasn't a mistake. That was just bad play. Yeah, I took the same deck that I played last episode, but added all the cool new green red cards that I wanted to add into a Vader ramp deck. That deck plays kind of much more how I feel like Spark of Rebellion Vader green is a very aggro deck that just has some ramp in the back end, but you're ramping to Vader, who is a beat stick of a leader. God. I think Shadows allows it to be a little bit more of just pure like ramp at the low end too, of just like all the good green stuff, like
all the way
really
up the
satisfying.
Curve. Yep.
All the way up the curve. Yeah, it's like Crate Dragon and next to Devastator, right? Like, you really have options at that top end that I found enjoyable. Speaking of both improvement to our audio quality, speaking of how good the game is, Ned, we've been doing this podcast now for an entire set. We started before Spark of Rebellion came out, and now we're doing it after Shadows came out, and I am having a blast. I mean, admittedly, we're still working on the audio quality, but we're doing something weird, a little different. It's a lot of fun. I don't want to stop. I want to do it for the rest of my life. And I think what that means is, Ned, will you marry me?
Parker. I'm afraid I can't, because it would cause me to commit the crime of bigamy. My heart still belongs to my spouse.
163-515. Yeah, that's a bigamy, classic law on the books. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I understand.
For the sake of the bit, let's pretend that I said yes.
Okay, good, because I love a good bit. All right. Well, if we are going to get married, Ned, then I believe we need 4 things, and I believe we have each prepared 4 things. First, something old. Ned, have you brought an old leader tonight?
I have. I've brought the Grand Inquisitor, Hunting the Jedi. This is updates to the deck that I took to the 2K. And I would say that Grand Inquisitor has been missing a lot of stuff up the curve. You're playing a lot of kind of garbagey filler cards in addition to your good stuff. So you've got like when you get the good stuff.
You're saying in Spark. In Spark you're playing garbage. Hopefully you're not playing...
Yeah. I mean...
Hopefully you're not playing garbage in Shadows.
I mean, people may look at the deck list and make claims about that. But, I mean, like the good stuff that you have in terms of like Scout Bike Pursuer, if you can play Scout Bike Pursuer turn 1, that's a really great start. If you can play Seventh Sister on 5 into a relatively clear board, or into an opponent where you're able to ensure that they can get multiple attacks in, you can just absolutely wreck face. But you're adding to that some really good new stuff. So one of these was called out by none other than Tyler Parrott himself on Twitter, or X earlier, Deathwatch Loyalist, a 3/3 4/3 that has 2 keywords, Grit and Overwhelm. And so I am a little giddy at the idea of slamming this down on turn 2, readying it, and then nailing somebody for 5 points of overwhelm damage. Get through an echo-based defender, get through whatever you want, and still do some face damage, which I think is kind of the deck at its best.
Yeah, no. Deathwatch Loyalist feels like a card that is actually just a 5/1 overwhelm for 3.
Yeah, I think, but it's modal, right? And I think that's one of the big strengths of the GI deck is that essentially all your cards are kind of modal, where you can play them for their face stats, or you can play them readied for 2 less health, kind of. I mean, it doesn't quite work out that way. You get got a fair bit. Another card that I think really helps the deck is Sinara-san, who is a 3/6 for 4 with Grit. She also has a bounty. When she's exhausted, she gains deal 5 damage to a base.
So walk me through that card. So in my mind, I see that card. You're dropping it for 5.
Yep.
I run something into it.
Yep.
Either the turn you drop it or the next turn. For 3 damage, and so now you've got 6 power because of grit.
Yep.
It's a 3/6 with grit, so I run something into it, and then you hit me in the base for 7, and then I guess then I hit you with something else small and heal my base for 5, and that leaves me with 2 base damage and 2 for 1.
It does not heal your base. It deals damage to a base. The bounty deals damage to a base.
Got it.
You are cranking
reading
up
the card.
Speed. Yeah, reading the card helps. You are cranking up the speed at which you are both dealing damage. As GI, you are frequently on the aggressive foot. And another important note is that she only has that text when she is exhausted. So a common play pattern of you play her, they do something, you ready her, and then they kill it. Okay.
Right.
They had to kill it with something because it's at that point like a 5/4 effective stats, and it's ready. And if they don't kill it, you're smacking them in the face for 5, which is non-trivial.
Right.
Another one is Kerr Santon.
That one was rough.
He's a real house, and especially because you get to run the client, which I didn't call out, but I think is probably going to be featured in a lot of villainy blue decks.
I feel like you just called out the client.
Yeah, well, the client is a 3-cost 2/5 shielded. They have an action, choose a unit. It gains bounty, heal 5 damage from a base. So you can frequently use the client to deal with the consequences of Cenarasan, or just trying to win that race. Also, as a 2/5 shielded, it plays at 3 cost. It plays very well with the abilities of Grand Inquisitor. You can just put it in and then ready it. And it's still a 2/5. But Kersanton is Kersanton. I'm never going to be able to pronounce his name right. He is a 3/7 for 5 in aggression and villainy. Base stats are 3/7, like I said. It has a when played, if an enemy unit has a bounty, you may ready this unit. And then it has an on attack, choose a ground unit. You may deal 1 damage to it for each damage on this unit. So in Magical Christmas Land, like you drop Kersanton, you've already tagged something with the client. So they're coming in ready. You hit something, it takes a little bit of damage. You ready it with GI. You hit them again, and you take out another ground unit, and you're just sweeping the board. I
mean, Kersanton really feels like one of those cards that has to be played around, right? Like there's not in the hand, but once it's on the table, it just kind of for 5, I feel like it really just twists all of the play patterns, because he can do, the more you hit him, if you don't take him out, the more damage you're just taking back. And that's a pretty disgusting card in GI especially.
Yes. So I feel like we're adding a lot more consistency. I think that the deck still is missing good stuff in space. You've got some okay stuff in space. Punishing One, I think, is going to be featured heavily, but I feel like Punishing One is going to be featured in a lot of decks, so I'm not calling it out specifically. But like you need more space units that play well. I really wish Ruthless Raider had 1 fewer point of power, but it doesn't. So
I think there's something to be said for, I think we're going to start seeing in Shadows some aggressively spaced decks. That's going to become and I still think it'll be off meta, but I think we're going to start seeing people showing up just trying, right? That Don Quixote windmill tilting wedge fanatics who are still hoping for that, all space deck. They're going to start trying. And if you don't have, more than ever, I think not having space is going to, or not having enough space is going to hurt.
Yes.
So my old leader.
Parker? Yes.
I'm going to try Cassian. He's one of the early decks I'm excited about. I think he lends to a slightly more control play pattern. He didn't have the beef in Sparky Rebellion. He's almost entirely unplayed. But I've been keeping an eye on him for 2 reasons. One, I have him in a showcase, so always looking for that reason to play him. 2, Danny Schaefer constantly talking about Cassian. If the lead dev is talking about their favorite leader, that leader has to have juice. And I think Cassian allows for hand hate and hand enablement at the same time in yellow, which is something that I'm excited to try out. Like doing damage to draw cards, using those cards. A lot of times if I'm spending a card to get you to discard a card, even if the card is, you're discarding something key and expensive and I'm just playing a Spark of Rebellion or something, we're still each discarding a card, going back to one of our earliest episodes. But if I'm also able to keep drawing more cards to keep up that, I feel like that's one of the key strategies in TCGs that speak to that small amount of Johnny need.
If you have an excess of a particular resource, you want to try and convert it as well as possible. And one of the challenges about card advantage is that if you're drawing a whole bunch of cards, frequently you have difficulty turning that raw card advantage into other advantages because it's being mediated by your resources. But if you're able to turn your card advantage, cash in your card advantage by forcing your opponent to discard cards, then you're turning your card advantage into board advantage effectively because you're denying your opponent the ability to play to the board without costing you resources, potentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just a fundamental thing. Is like breaking symmetry is often, taking symmetry and then building your deck around it. Their deck's not built around it. Is something that I want to explore in Star Wars Unlimited because it's not something I historically in other games have not. My mind has not gone there. So Cassian yellow, I think yellow has a fair amount of new hand hate. You've got Heroic Kira. She's the she's a 3/5 for 4. But basically she is a regional governor, but she always hits. She doesn't ban it, but let's be honest, the increased cost of 3 is effectively banning the card. Are you playing Overwhelming Barrage for 8? Are you playing Greedo for 4? Maybe in some corner case where it wins you the game, but it hurts. The benefit though is that she always hits because you're getting that hand info, and look, Villainy players regularly run Viper Pro Droid. 3/2 for 2. And so you just look at Kira as a rider on that. She's, for 2 extra resources, you're getting a bonus of 3 health, and you get to ban one of those cards that you just saw, which that feels good. You got Poe, who isn't hand hate, but he's just beef if you have cards to discard.
Even without the cards to discard, 6/6 for
5 is quite good.
It's above Ned math. Like that is one of the standouts.
Exactly. It's high above Ned math, but then just on top of it, if it's if you get him out on 5, great. You just got out of 6/6 for 5. That feels pretty good on turn 4. But if it's late game, and you're running as Cassian, you've got a handful of cards. Sure, on attack, deal 2 damage, defeat an upgrade, and force an opponent to discard another card from their hand. Great. Like, that feels great. That feeds into the dream. Fennec, if you're just cycling through cards, drawing cards, playing lots of cheap yellow cards, you're gonna, with some nice top ends in the deck, you're gonna end up being able to just ambush Fennec in with. I think people compare Fennec unfavorably to Boba Unit, but I think, or to Han, more to with the ambush and the strike. Han unit with the built-in strike first. I think people are going to break Fennec because if you break her top end is a lot higher. Pillage, right? Like, just boom, 4 resources. They discard 2 cards. That feels good. I think that card is going to be great. Cassian, Cassian unit, 3/5 for 3 comes to heroism. I think I'm not going to be the one to crack this list. But The shell is there. I've put together a list. I'm watching other lists. I'm excited to to finally, Cassian get his day to play. I don't know if he'll be top end, but I'm excited to see. People won't be ready for that amount of hand hate, I don't think.
No, imagining a problem with discard in a lot of other games is that you can't discard the top of their deck, which is true. But in SWU, you kind of can with pillage, right? Like, let's say that you open pillage, you've discarded the top of their deck effectively, right? Like you can do it before they have a chance to use the cards, which is quite good.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm super pro. I think there's just enough red speed plus yellow hand hate, and normally a deck running that would probably run out of gas, but Cassian, it's not that hard to pretty reliably put 3 damage on a base most turns in a red deck. There you go. There's the cards you need to top off. So, something old, also something new. Ned, what new Shadows hero are you excited to build around?
The Shadows leader that I'm excited to build around is Kylo Ren. I love discard synergy, and Kylo Ren is discard into Reanimator, which is feels pretty good. Feels like home. And it's in an aggro shell even, right? Like, it's not a combo deck. It's a very aggressively slanted deck. So looking at some of the key cards, Miggs Mayfield Triggerman is a 2/2 for 2, which is a pretty unimpressive stat line until you read his ability, which says, when a player discards a card from their hand, you may deal 2 damage to a unit or base. Use this ability only once each round. So I think very frequently you're going to be playing Miggs, and then you kill whatever they play. If they play a 3/2, you get to kill it right away. If they play a 2/3, you get to deal 2 damage to it, and then they have to trade into Miggs, or else you're going to kill them on open next round, because with Kylo, you're using Kylo's ability to discard a card to buff something pretty frequently, right? Like, the goal is that you're using it every turn.
I want Miggs in my Cassian deck for the exact same reason, right? Like, that's the great thing, is it works if you're... I feel like the obvious answer, Miggs is going to see play, because if I'm making you discard, it's a good card. If I'm controlling when I discard, he's a good card. So
I'm running Jango Fett, and I think that this is one of the reasons why Jango Fett is so powerful, is I'm running him in a list that has no intrinsic bounties. I'm just treating the bounty text as pure trinket text, because Jango also has the text when Jango is a 4-cost aggression villainy 3/6 with theoretically useful, but in this deck, trinket text of when attacking a unit with a bounty, it gets +3/+0 and gains overwhelm. So huge. But then also when it attacks and defeats a unit, this is all the time, you draw a card. And so this deck is going to be burning through the cards, and so having Jango is pretty significant. And the fact that you can discard a card to turn Jango into a 5/6 that will replace that card that you discarded, pretty good. Kylo's tie. Yeah.
I'm not... I think everybody knows Kylo's tie, the 3/2 that you can play from your discard pile. I am not excited to... as you described this, your kind of... the optimal plays for each of these cards.
Yeah.
I don't want to play against this deck. Take it to locals. Play. Don't play me with this net. This just sounds... it'll be over fast, which is nice. But.
Well, and then speaking of... you've got a lot of really low to the ground aggressive stuff, but then you also get top end with Palpatine's Return, right? Like, that's the thing, is that you're throwing away cards, and then Palpatine's Return is a 6-cost event that lets you play a unit from your discard pile in command villainy, and it costs 8 less if it's a Force unit. And my goodness, what is that? It's Darth Vader commanding the First Legion and Emperor Palpatine, Master of the Dark Side, that you get to play in your aggro deck on 6. So and you're also running ECL and Steadfast Battalion on a leader that plays on 5, right? Like, this is sorry.
It's a good shell. It's a really good shell. I just want to highlight one of the things I find fascinating about Palpatine's Return, and everybody talks about the ability, blah blah blah, is just the inversion. All of the other Force events have a rider if you control a Force unit. And with Palpatine's Return, you specifically have to be targeting the Force unit, which I find is just a slight variation on a theme that I find compelling. Yeah, but yeah, that's a gross shell. It's there's going to be a lot of it. I think there's going to be a lot of both of these. I think these are cards people are very excited about.
Yeah, I think the only thing that is slightly I'm not wild about is Kylo Ren himself when he deploys as a leader on 4. A 5/4 on 4 is just
maybe a 5/4.
Maybe a 5/4, right?
5/4 on 4, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, no, but frequently it's going to be like a 3/4 on 4. And then like at the start of turn 5, it is a 3/4 until you can get rid of the cards in your hand. So yeah.
Yeah, no, he goes in once. He is. You deploy him. You play your separatists.
Yeah, that's
or
it.
Your steadfast battalion, and then he's gone. So
yeah. What did you bring? That's new?
My new leader that I'm excited about is Mandalorian, which is a uncomfortable yellow recurring yellow theme for me. But he is the hero. So far we've seen a lot of villainy reward for playing upgrades. But Mandalorian is the heroism reward for playing upgrades, and I love upgrades. And he's a direct reward, right? Like, I don't like Voltron decks because it's too high risk for me. I'm not a Chirrut player because putting all your eggs in that basket just is too high stress. But I do love upgrades. I love taking small cards, making them bigger. And Mandalorian enables that. And so I just want to build around that. And I mean, he's a starter leader. Luke was reasonably compelling. Vader obviously dominated, so we'll see if that trend continues of starter leaders being reasonably viable. The shell, I think there's going to be a weird tension with the Mandalorian. I'm not sure which direction to take it in because he is a Mandalorian, and so that immediately sends you down the path of, should I be building a Mandalorian deck? And then if you're building a Mandalorian deck that pulls you to green, an upgrade deck pulls you to green, but a Mandalorian deck pulls you to red and blue, and he's in yellow, so you're already in this weird place. And so I think the Mandalorian's going to, there's going to be a lot of poorly built Mandalorian decks. I think there's going to be a lot of decks that people, like the Mandalorian, even in green, the obvious quick, card you want to ask is the Darksaber, right? And I hate the idea of the Darksaber in green because it feels like playing any color but green in Hera, right? If you're playing Hera, you want to play green because if you're playing red or blue or yellow, you are losing you're not optimally using Hera's ability to bring in non-green specters. Similarly, if you're playing a Mandalorian deck with green, then you're not getting the maximum value of the Dark Saber. So anyways, the point being, Mandalorian, if you take it down you can take it down a Mandalorian deck, but the Mandalorian leader a Mandalorian typal deck.
Yeah.
My concern is anything you build with that is going to probably be better as a Bo-Katan deck. So you really have to
110%. Yeah.
Right. And so you lean into instead just going for a lot of upgrades, and that could be in blue. I'm excited to try it in green, but you've got, because green is the capture color, right? So if you're not, if you're building these big decks or these little units, you're taking small units, you capture them, you're placing shields on them to protect them, and so green and yellow are the capture colors. You got Legal Authority, Relentless Pursuit. Those are the kind of two obvious cards for capture. Legal Authority being the upgrade that grabs the attached unit to capture unit. Relentless Pursuit is the capture unit in the same arena and give a shield if the capturing unit's a bounty hunter. There's a lot of Mandalorian auto support, right? Like there's Grogu, naturally. There's Grief Karga, who's always fetching upgrades. There's Commission, which I think Commission's our best tutor now. I mean, obviously the Vader is also a tutor, but in terms of just card that's primarily played for the tutor, Commission grabs so much. I want to have a deck with L337 in it as our cartel Crafty Smuggler, but better, right? So I think there's a lot of fun upgrade stuff in green yellow that I want to explore in the Mandalorian. Just being annoying, exhausting units constantly. Whether that's up, the obvious answer for exhausting is like going aggro and just ignoring the units. But I think using the exhaustion as a chance to build up, like I play the small unit. Before you can kill it, I exhaust by playing the upgrade. Now I get some value out of the upgrade. I can either go face before you murder it or whatever. I think there's juice there. I'm very excited to explore the Mandalorian. But Ned, we had terrible audio last episode. We are not experienced content creators, but there are experienced content creators out there that we respect and that we listen to and that we consume. Do you have something borrowed, Ned?
I do. I would like to say bonjour, Monsieur Thork. Comment ça va? And I am borrowing the Jabba ramp deck that he talked about in his decks he's excited to build. I first looked at it and I was not quite sure what the heck it was doing, but after having played it, boy... Boy, I mean, to start off with, you've got Reputable Hunter at the very low end. So Reputable Hunter is a 3-cost unit in green, 3/4 with if an enemy unit has a bounty, this unit costs 1 less to play. And remarkably enough, Jabba the Hutt gives things bounties, so you can play this on turn 1. Like having a 3/4 on turn 1 is literally bigger than any other turn 1 unit out there, which lets you hold on to the ground pretty well. And then you can ramp into Great Dragon, which is just absolutely obscene as a red 10/10, 9-cost 10/10 overwhelm with when an opponent plays a card, you may deal damage equal to that card's cost to their base or a ground unit they control. So like you just dealing with it is completely ridiculous.
I wanted to put the Jabba Red, not Thork's Jabba Red deck, but just the idea of Jabba Red, as my something new, because I think right now, red leaders in green tend to play aggro with like they're a tempo into or mid range with a very they're more of an aggro deck with a back end so that they don't peter out quite as quickly. And I like the idea of green leaders in red, right? The much more slower mid range decks. The problem is right now in villainy we have Palpatine, who is very much a build around, and you've got Tarkin, who does his other thing, and Jabba feels very much like that ramp red Jabba feels very much like the soft control in the 5 pillars that are shaping up, where it's like you get that mid range fun, but you're also ramping just into pure control.
Yeah, I mean, like Jabba flipping and capturing something if you've got another unit on the board, it's like Palpatine but less good. But on the other hand,
I love I love the Palpatine flip turn. It's just the sacking things for card draw is not my jam.
Yeah. The one other thing that I'll call out that I think is really fun is Timely Intervention, which is a 1-cost green event that lets you play a unit from your hand, gives it ambush, or you can smuggle it for 2. In a ramp deck, you are able to run a red base and a 30 health red base and kind of get ECL. Like, again, you're putting a surcharge on the unit, but I think that frequently it's worth it. Being able to.
But it's not cost limited, right? Like ECL is. So you can bring out something. You can ramp in your Palpatine, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Or ambushing
in a Palpatine. 6 damage and then overwhelm one of the things that you left alive is not bad. You do need 9 or 10 resources to do it, but this is a deck that gets there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought Space Arena Ground Arena. Since the moment CAD Bane was previewed, Banana Crapshoot has been just tinkering and just very publicly tinkering and effusing about CAD Bane, specifically in red, and I believe it, right? Like I've heard it. There is something appealing about a typal deck that does damage on play, and making. I always loved elves in Magic 2 hot decades ago, and the idea of like enter the battle, making your other typal cards enter the battle is such a great feeling. So just CAD Bane by himself, like. And I like that it takes this. Appealing thing about CAD Bane for me is that it takes the stress off of having to decide how to ping. Like, he's balanced around letting your opponent ping themselves, which really appeals to me because I hate being like, do I start working on this big unit, or do I start working on this big unit? Do I try to get this other unit closer to finishing off? But then maybe it's I have to go down that back and forth, and nope, I'm just going to keep playing the cards I want to play. You keep doing damage to your stuff. It just becomes an increased efficiency rider on all of your cards. And then you just build on that, right? Like Lady Proxima, twofer, right? Now it's the base and a unit. You get McClunky, right? Like return something cheap to your hand to do 3 damage, and then you go right back and you play it again. That shell alone just seems nice. You get, obviously, you're running Punishing One, which we said a lot of people are talking about, but you get Dengar, right? Like you're playing a fair, some upgrades. You're playing, just in the form of bounties. That's a little bit more ping damage. You can run Boba, right? Great, Boba's good. We know this. You get Jango Fett, and I think Jango Fett plus Boba Fett. If you're running 3 of both, like, then you're gonna set up, Fett's Fire Spray without having to have the leader. You're very likely to have one of the Fetts on board when it's time to drop Fett's Fire Spray. And then on top of it all, Xanadu Blood, the Cad Bane ship, which just lets you bounce those cards again which is something you kind of already want to do, right? Like you want to bounce Greedo, you want to bounce Dengar so that you can play them again to ping for more damage. But then you're also exhausting resources that your opponent has. It just seems like such a thankless deck. Like it just seems like misery, but it does, with a reasonably low skill floor. I'm sure it has a high skill ceiling to pilot well, but it lets you feel like you're a control player when all you're doing is just put, I just want to hard cast cards, turn them sideways, but then it's like pew 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 pew, like there's damage going around.
The feeling is really nice. I was looking at this list. The Triple Dark Raid I think is very spicy. Like being able to Triple Dark Raid into a Fett's Fire Spray or a Xanadu Blood. That's just like a lot of damage basically out of nowhere, and especially if it's Xanadu Blood, that's potentially a lot of that firing. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Xandu's Blood. I mean, you can do Fett's Fire Spray, but you have a really high likelihood of entering that, early. But it also, because it returns your hand, it's not like it gets sacked, right? Right.
Surprise Strike, or not Surprise Strike.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
But the Spark Rebellion card where you play it,
the two cost event that enters something ready,
but then at the end of the round it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas like bouncing into your hand, that's good in and of itself. But on top of it, you've got so many Underworld cards that then I get to play it again and ping it twice. That's 2 pings. You just, oh man, I'm terrified of how excited I am to play this yellow deck. I think it's going to be quite good.
Beautiful.
All right, Ned, the last thing we were supposed to bring was something blue. Do you have a blue leader or a blue deck that you are excited to?
I have a blue deck, but not a blue leader. I am running Red Han with a blue base, the new young Han. I am really interested in the core idea of being able to play things for cheap and dealing them damage. And remarkably enough, there are a fair few cards in green and blue that like to have damage dealt to
Red
them,
and blue.
mostly red and blue. Pardon, yes, red and blue. Mostly because of grit, and a lot of those grit cards turn out to be Wookiees, and so you get to play like a Wookiee typo package. So, you know, looking at key cards. Poe's already been talked about as just like a big old slab of beef, but like getting Poe down a turn early can be hugely significant.
I mean, that's turn 3.
Yeah.
Right? He's already 5, like resource turn 5, but resource turn 4 is disgusting.
In terms of other cards that are just really exciting to play, a Gorilla Attack Pod. I mean, being able to play that as a 6/4 on turn 4 and potentially ready if people have low base health, like that's pretty significant. Another big card at the very top end, Chewbacca Pike's Bane, 8 cost in blue and heroic.
Good guy Dooku Chewie.
Yes, its base stats are 4/10 with grit, and when played you may defeat a unit with 5 or less remaining HP. So like if you're playing it on turn 7 with Han, it's doing a Dooku impression, except instead of leaving behind like a
7/4 with shield.
Right. Instead, it's leaving behind a 6/8 with grit. And the other thing is it has smuggle. So you can resource it early. Now you can't use the Han Solo ability on it, but I still think that's there's some juice there. Another thing that really recommends the deck to me is Karabast. The fact that you're able to bring into play friendly units and actually have damage on them to Karabast with means that card becomes remarkably better. And then at the very end of the Wookiee synergy, looking at Tarful and
there's a lot of beef. Like red-blue is one of those decks that just doesn't have any ramp, but you go hard on the red early, and then you've just got a blue heroism is not short on end game beef.
Oh no. Yeah. So I'm curious. I don't think it's necessarily the best Han Solo deck. I think that there are probably the double red Han Solo that I've seen floating around might be like a strictly better Han Solo. But on the other hand, you get to play Wookiee Typo.
Yeah. And you and I, one of the things we agree on, Typo's fun.
Typo's fun. So yeah. How about you, Parker? What did you bring that's blue?
Ned, this marriage is a sham. I lied to you right at the outset. Everything is blue, Ned. Blue is the best color. The something old that I really want to play is Krennic, Iden, Luke, Chewbacca. Not Chirrut, Rip. The real something new that I want to play is Kira, Gar Saxon. I want to play non-blue leaders in blue. I want to try blue Sabine, a Mando kind of control-y deck. I want to play blue Bo-Katan Mando. Getting out Sabine on turn 3 and dropping the Darksaber on her is just going to be... that's going to be a great turn.
Bananas.
Right? Yeah. You just, boom, done. Like, you don't even need to be running green because she's Mando, because she's the weird Mary Sue princess character who is literally everything. That's not a knock on Ahsoka TV show. That's more just a comment on Sabine's entire arc since she was created. But no, blue is amazing. If I was green, I would die. So the deck I'm actually going to talk about right now is double blue Ray, the bluest blue, deepest, bluest. My hat is like a shark fin deck that I want to run, which is, I'm pumped because it's a go ham with small stuff deck that I've been trying to figure out. I saw this with I think it was with Han, somebody was running it with Han or Mando, but the idea that with now 2 sets, you can actually run a low end with C-3PO really static. Like you can put like just a boatload of 2 costs in a deck and then just end up drawing off of C-3PO without needing the R2-D2 peak. You just are reliably calling 2 after 2 after 2. You can put like 20 plus 2 costs in a deck, which works really well with Rey. So Rey's taking these small units, you're giving them experience, and you're just drawing a ton with C-3PO. Also, Cool, who is, since you're running double blue, you're running almost entirely pure heroism or pure vigilance cards. Kuil, he's the one who, when he attacks, you discard the top card from your deck, and if it matches your base, you get to draw it. So between and he costs
double
2,
blue.
right?
Yeah.
So in double blue, so you get Kuil and C-3PO. Both of them are just drawing you cards, which is just feeding into this 2 costs. You've got the Mandalorian armor. You can put the Clan Ren Rescuer in your deck, which grabbing the full stat for it. It's a 2 cost 1/2, right? But it gives the experience point to something that's just experienced out of Rey's ability. So Rey, she's got she can only put things on units that have power 2 or less. So then once they're at there and they can't get that experience anymore, you play a Clan Run Rescuer, put the experience on them to keep growing them. You're putting the Mandalorian armor on them to keep growing them. So you've got this nice little blue Mando shell. Follower of the Way, which is the one that gets the bonus if it's got an upgrade on it. So and then Villainy all through Spark of Rebellion was running Vigilance for 4 or even Vigilance for 6 because it's good. Luke ran Vigilance for 6, but you didn't really ever see double blue Luke enough. There was too much value in green, but I think the time for heroism to be able to pay 4 for Vigilance has come. So the deck one of the decks I'm truly most excited to play is just this Blitz double blue Rey into Mandalorian Luke Skywalker top end. It's going to be great.
Beautiful.
Only thing that deck is missing is a blue heroism space top end. Like Ghost isn't it. We don't have there's no home one in blue yet, but Twilight, we'll get there. But that's the deck I'm excited to start cooking. Well, Ned, that was a wild ride. I'm sorry that our marriage is going to be built on
lies.
That we will live in a house of lies from day one. But, dear listener, that was All She Wrote, episode 18 of The Force Unlimited, June 28th. If you have any thoughts about the episode, dear listener, please email us at theforceunlimited@gmail.com or ping Ned on Discord. Ned, do you have any final thoughts?
Ping Ned on Discord. Parker, monster.
He's available. He came into the server. Just grab him. Search for Ned Math. Anybody who's talking about Ned Math who's not me, just ping them. You got anything left, Ned?
Yes, I actually... I wanted to... I'm sure that this is going to be filled by the time that this episode goes live, but they're taking applications for a designer for SWU. So if you are an amateur designer and want to make the big time and are willing to live in Minnesota, I would point you in that particular direction.
Yeah, I was surprised at especially Tyler's tweet recently. Like, this feels like a break into. I mean, you've got to have some experience, but like you and I have both bought RPGs off of itch.io. Like,
yes,
1 year of game design is a low bar to clear. I think the bigger bar to clear is, are you willing to move to Minnesota? But yes, excellent point. And I think though with that, We will see you in a few weeks.
Adios.